The security footage showed everything. A teenage girl reaching into an expensive backpack, her movements quick and deliberate. The timestamp read 2:47 p.m. Friday afternoon at Westfield Academy. By Monday morning, her life would be completely destroyed. But what the cameras captured wasn't the whole truth. And billionaire tech mogul Marcus Blackwell was about to discover that sometimes the most damaging lies hide in plain sight. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. Maya Rodriguez clutched her worn canvas messenger bag closer to her chest as she walked through the pristine hallways of Westfield Academy. The scholarship that brought her here felt more like a burden with each passing day. Designer shoes clicked against marble floors around her, a constant reminder that she didn't belong in this world of privilege and wealth. Her sneakers, second-hand from Goodwill but scrubbed clean, made barely a whisper against the gleaming surface. Maya had learned to walk quietly here, to take up as little space as possible. 3 months into her senior year, and she still felt like an imposter wearing her carefully pressed uniform, the fabric slightly faded from too many washes. "Rodriguez!" Mrs. Hampton's sharp voice cut through the hallway chatter. "My office, now!" Maya's stomach dropped. The elderly academic coordinator had never called her to the office before. She followed Mrs. Hampton down the corridor, past trophy cases filled with awards she'd never be able to afford to compete for, past photos of alumni who'd gone on to Ivy League schools their parents purchased with donations. The office smelled like expensive coffee and disappointment. Mrs. Hampton settled behind her mahogany desk, her fingers drumming impatiently against a manila folder. "Sit," she commanded, not looking up from the papers spread before her. Maya perched on the edge of the leather chair, her hands folded in her lap. Through the window, she could see the courtyard where her classmates lounged during lunch, their conversations filled with talk of spring break trips to Europe and summer internships their connections had secured. "There's been an incident," Mrs. Hampton began, finally meeting Maya's eyes. "A very serious incident involving theft." The word hit Maya like a physical blow. "Theft?" Alexander Blackwell reported that $200 cash went missing from his backpack yesterday afternoon. He was in the study hall, left his bag unattended for approximately 15 minutes. Mrs. Hampton's voice was clinical, detached. "You were seen in the vicinity." Maya's mouth went dry. Alexander Blackwell, son of Marcus Blackwell, the tech billionaire whose company had revolutionized cloud computing. Alexander, with his perfect smile and effortless charm, who'd never acknowledged her existence despite sitting 2 seats away in AP literature for 3 months. "I didn't take anything," Maya whispered, her voice barely audible. "The security cameras show you near his table during the time frame in question." Mrs. Hampton pulled out a printed photograph, a grainy image that showed Maya's profile as she walked past the study hall entrance. "Can you explain what you were doing there?" Maya's mind raced back to yesterday afternoon. She'd been heading to the library, taking her usual route through the main corridor. The study hall was along that path. She walked past it every day. "I was going to the library. I always take that route." Her voice grew stronger, more insistent. "I would never steal anything." Mrs. Hampton's expression remained skeptical. "Maya, I understand your family's financial situation makes this scholarship crucial for you. Sometimes students under pressure make poor choices." "I didn't steal anything," Maya repeated, her cheeks burning with humiliation. The implication was clear. Poor girl, desperate family, obvious suspect. Be that as it may, Alexander's father has requested a full investigation. Mr. Blackwell is a significant donor to this institution. Mrs. Hampton's tone suggested the matter was already decided. "Until this is resolved, you're suspended from all extracurricular activities. No debate team, no tutoring sessions." Maya felt her world crumbling. The debate team wasn't just an activity. It was her path to college scholarships, her ticket out of the cramped apartment where she shared a bedroom with her younger sister. The tutoring sessions provided the only spending money she had, helping struggling students with their homework for $5 an hour. "Mrs. Hampton, please. I need those activities for my college applications. I'm applying for early admission to—" "The investigation will be thorough and fair," Mrs. Hampton interrupted. "If you're innocent, as you claim, everything will be restored. But for now, this is non-negotiable." Maya stumbled out of the office, her vision blurred with unshed tears. The hallway seemed longer now, the whispers of her classmates more pointed. Word traveled fast at Westfield. and she could already feel the weight of their stares. In her next class, advanced calculus, she tried to focus on derivatives and integrals, but her mind kept circling back to the photograph. Her walking past the study hall, completely innocent, now twisted into evidence of guilt. She thought about her mother, working double shifts at the diner to keep their family afloat. Her father, gone since Maya was 12, leaving behind only debt and broken promises. Her little sister Carmen, only 8 years old, who looked up to Maya like she was a superhero. What would happen if she lost her scholarship? The thought made her physically sick. After school, Maya took the city bus home instead of staying for debate practice. The familiar route through downtown felt different now. The gleaming office buildings and expensive restaurants, a reminder of the world she'd been cast out from. Her reflection in the bus window looked tired, defeated. The apartment building where she lived was a stark contrast to Westfield Academy's polished perfection. Peeling paint, broken mailboxes, the persistent smell of cooking oil and cigarettes in the hallways. But it was home. "Mija, you're early," her mother Rosa called from the kitchen. She was preparing for her evening shift, her diner uniform freshly pressed despite being 3 years old. Maya dropped her bag by the door and slumped into one of their mismatched kitchen chairs. "Mama, something happened at school." Rosa's hand stilled on her name tag. The worry lines around her eyes deepened. She'd learned to read her daughter's moods after years of fighting just to survive. Maya told her everything, watching her mother's face shift from confusion to anger to resignation. Rosa sat down heavily, suddenly looking older than her 36 years. "They think because we don't have money you must be a thief," Rosa said quietly. "It's always the same with people like them." "But I didn't do anything wrong," Maya insisted, needing to hear her mother believe her. "I know you didn't, baby. You have more integrity in your little finger than those rich kids have in their whole bodies." Rosa reached across the table and squeezed Maya's hand. But sometimes being right isn't enough. That evening, while Rosa worked her shift and Carmen did homework at the kitchen table, Maya stared at her college application essays on her laptop screen. All her carefully crafted words about overcoming adversity and pursuing excellence seemed hollow now. How could she write about her dreams when they were being systematically destroyed by a lie? Meanwhile, across town in a penthouse office overlooking the city, Marcus Blackwell was having a very different conversation with his son. Alexander sat across from his father's desk, his expensive private school blazer draped over the back of his chair. At 17, he already carried himself with the confidence of someone who'd never been told no about anything that mattered. "So this girl definitely took the money?" Marcus asked, not looking up from his tablet where he was reviewing quarterly earnings reports. "Had to be her," Alexander shrugged. "I mean, who else would it be? She's the only scholarship kid in our class. Mrs. Hampton said her family's basically broke." Marcus finally looked at his son, noting the casual cruelty in his voice. When had Alexander become so callous? Marcus tried to remember the last time they'd had a real conversation, beyond discussions of grades and college applications. $200 is a lot of money to carry around school, Marcus observed. "It was for the ski trip deposit. I forgot to give it to Mom before she left for her spa weekend." Alexander's tone suggested this kind of carelessness was normal for him. Marcus set down his tablet. His son's explanation bothered him, though he couldn't immediately articulate why. Something felt incomplete about the story. "And you're certain you had the money when you left for school?" "Dad, I counted it like 3 times. 200 exactly." Alexander's voice carried a hint of irritation, as if being questioned was beneath him. But Marcus hadn't built a billion-dollar company by accepting surface explanations. His success came from digging deeper, from questioning assumptions that others took for granted. The same instincts that had revolutionized cloud computing were now focused on his son's story. "I want to see the security footage," Marcus said suddenly. Alexander's expression shifted slightly. "Why?" "Mrs. Hampton said the investigation was handled. The girl's already been suspended from her activities." "Humor me," Marcus replied, his tone suggesting this wasn't a request. As Maya lay awake that night, staring at the ceiling she shared with Carmen in their tiny bedroom, she couldn't know that across the city, a billionaire was about to discover that the truth was far more complicated than anyone realized, and that sometimes justice comes from the most unexpected places. Maya woke up to the sound of her alarm, momentarily forgetting that her world had changed overnight. For a brief, blissful second, she thought about debate practice after school. Then reality crashed back down. At Westfield Academy, the whispers followed her like shadows. Students who had barely noticed her existence before now stared openly, their conversations stopping abruptly when she walked by. Madison Pierce and her group of friends made no effort to hide their discussion at Maya's locker. "I heard she needed the money for rent," Madison said, loud enough for Maya to hear. "How desperate do you have to be to steal from Alexander Blackwell?" $200, though," another girl chimed in. "That's like what my mom spends on lunch." Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Maya's hands trembled as she fumbled with her combination lock. The numbers swam before her eyes, 31, 18, 7, but her fingers couldn't seem to work properly. On the third try, she finally got it open, grabbed her books, and slammed it shut harder than necessary. "Maya!" She turned to see Jordan Chen jogging toward her. Jordan was one of the few students at Westfield who came from a middle-class background. His parents were both doctors, comfortable but not wealthy by the school's standards. They'd worked together on several debate team preparations. "Hey," he said, slightly out of breath. "I heard what happened. This is crazy, right? Everyone knows you wouldn't do something like that." Maya felt a rush of gratitude so intense it nearly brought tears to her eyes. "Thanks, Jordan. It means a lot that you believe me." "Of course I believe you. You're the most honest person I know," he glanced around, lowering his voice. "Has anyone actually seen any proof? Like beyond you walking past the study hall?" "That's apparently all they need," Maya said bitterly. "Poor girl plus opportunity equals guilt." Jordan's jaw tightened. "This is such bullshit. Have you thought about fighting back? Maybe getting your own evidence?" "What evidence? I didn't do anything, so there's nothing to prove I didn't do it, if that makes sense." "Actually, it doesn't make sense. In America, you're supposed to be innocent until proven guilty, not the other way around." Meanwhile, in his corner office on the 40th floor of Blackwell Technologies, Marcus was making phone calls that would have surprised his son. His first call was to David Kim, head of security at Westfield Academy. "Mr. Blackwell, of course. What can I do for you?" David's voice carried the careful deference reserved for major donors. "I need to review the security footage from yesterday afternoon, the incident involving my son." "Oh, that's already been handled. Mrs. Hampton reviewed everything and identified the student in question. Case closed, really." Marcus's fingers drummed against his desk, a habit his employees recognized as a sign he was thinking deeply about something. "I'd like to see it myself." "Of course, sir. I can have the relevant footage sent to your office within the hour." "No, I'll come there. I want to see the full system, understand the camera angles, the timing. I'll be there at 2 o'clock. David sounded confused but didn't dare question a request from someone whose donations helped fund half the school's technology budget. "Absolutely, Mr. Blackwell. I'll make sure everything is ready." Marcus's next call was to his personal assistant. "Claire, cancel my 3 o'clock meeting with the Samsung representatives. And get me everything you can find on a student named Maya Rodriguez at Westfield Academy." "Of course, Mr. Blackwell." "Is this regarding the incident with Alexander?" Marcus paused. Claire had been with him for 8 years, long enough to know when he was investigating something. "Let's just say I want to be thorough." Within an hour, Claire had compiled a comprehensive file. Maya Rodriguez, age 17, straight-A student, member of the debate team, tutored other students in mathematics and English. Scholarship recipient based on academic merit and financial need. Mother worked 2 jobs, father absent, younger sister in elementary school. What struck Marcus wasn't just Maya's academic achievements. It was the consistency of her character references. Every teacher described her as hardworking, honest, and respectful. Her debate coach had written a letter of recommendation, calling her a student of exceptional integrity and moral character. Marcus had built his career on pattern recognition, on seeing what others missed. The pattern here didn't fit. Back at school, Maya endured her morning classes in a haze of humiliation. In AP Literature, she usually participated actively in discussions. But today she remained silent, even when Ms. Watson asked direct questions about the Fitzgerald essay they'd been assigned. Alexander sat 2 seats away, seemingly unbothered by the chaos he'd created in her life. During lunch, Maya retreated to the library instead of facing the cafeteria. She found a corner table behind the biography section and opened her calculus homework, but the numbers might as well have been hieroglyphics. Her mind kept racing through the events of yesterday afternoon. She'd left her last class, AP Chemistry, at 2:35. I walked down the main corridor toward the library, past the study hall, where several students were working, continued to the library, where she'd spent an hour researching sources for her college application essays. Such a simple, innocent sequence of events, now twisted into something sinister. Maya? She looked up to find Mrs. Chen, the librarian, standing beside her table with a concerned expression. "I heard about what happened," Mrs. Chen said quietly. "I wanted you to know that I don't believe it for a second." Maya's eyes filled with tears she'd been holding back all morning. "Thank you. It feels like everyone's already decided I'm guilty." "Not everyone. And the truth has a way of coming out, especially when people like you refuse to give up." Mrs. Chen glanced around, then leaned closer. "I've been the librarian here for 15 years. I've seen a lot of students come and go. You're one of the good ones, Maya. Don't let them make you forget that." At 2 p.m. sharp, Marcus Blackwell walked through the main entrance of Westfield Academy. He'd attended similar private schools himself, but seeing it now through the lens of investigation rather than nostalgia, he noticed things he'd overlooked before. The subtle hierarchies in how students dressed, the expensive cars in the parking lot, the way certain students commanded attention while others seemed to fade into the background. David Kim met him at the security office, a small room lined with monitors showing feeds from dozens of cameras throughout the school. "The incident occurred yesterday around 2:45, David explained, pulling up the relevant footage. "Here's camera 7, which covers the main study hall." Marcus watched the black and white footage carefully. Students moved in and out of frame, some settling at tables with books and laptops, others just passing through. The timestamp showed 2:43 when Alexander entered, carrying his expensive leather backpack. He chose a table near the center of the room and pulled out what appeared to be homework. "Where does Alexander normally sit?" Marcus asked. "This was actually unusual for him," David admitted. "He doesn't typically use the study hall during this period." Marcus filed that information away. At 2:46, Alexander got up from his table, leaving his backpack behind, and walked out of frame. "Where is he going?" "Based on other camera angles, to the bathroom. He's gone for about 12 minutes. During Alexander's absence, Marcus watched several students move through the study hall. Some sat down to work, others just walked through. At 2:51, Maya appeared in the corner of the frame, walking past the entrance but not entering the room itself. "That's it?" Marcus asked. "That's the evidence of her being near the backpack?" "Well, she's in the vicinity during the window when the money went missing." Marcus studied the footage more carefully. Maya was visible for perhaps 3 seconds as she walked past the doorway. She didn't slow down, didn't look into the room, didn't deviate from what appeared to be a straight path down the corridor. "I need to see camera angles from the other directions," Marcus said, "and I want to see the full timeline, not just the moment she walked by." David looked uncomfortable but began pulling up additional footage. As they watched, Marcus saw something that made his instincts sharpen. At 2:54, while Alexander was still absent, another student entered the study hall. Unlike Maya, this student went directly to the area where Alexander had been sitting. "Who is that?" Marcus asked, pointing to the figure on screen. David squinted at the monitor. "I'm not sure. The angle makes it difficult to see clearly." But Marcus was already thinking about facial recognition software, about enhancement techniques his company used for their security products. Most importantly, he was thinking about the fact that Mrs. Hampton had apparently decided Maya was guilty without looking at this part of the footage at all. "I need copies of everything," Marcus said. "Every camera angle, every timestamp, the full hour from 2:30 to 3:30. "Mr. Blackwell, I assure you, we've conducted a thorough investigation." "No," Marcus said quietly, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed. "You've conducted a surface investigation. Now we're going to do a real one." As Maya walked home that afternoon, she had no idea that across town, her life was about to change again. But this time, it wouldn't be because of an accusation. It would be because someone with the resources to uncover the truth had finally decided to look past the obvious answer and dig deeper. The question wasn't just who had really taken the money. The question was why everyone had been so quick to assume it was her, and what that revealed about the world she was trying so desperately to succeed in. The enhanced security footage arrived at Marcus Blackwell's home office at 6 a.m. on Tuesday morning. His technical team had worked through the night, using advanced facial recognition and image enhancement software to clarify what the school's basic cameras had captured. Maya, meanwhile, was discovering that being labeled a thief followed her everywhere. At the coffee shop where she'd hoped to study before school, the barista, a Westfield graduate, whispered to her coworker when Maya approached the counter. The humiliation was becoming a living thing, growing stronger with each stare and hushed conversation. But it was Jordan Chen who provided the breakthrough Maya didn't even know she needed. "I've been thinking about this all night," he said, cornering her at her locker. "There's something that doesn't add up. Why was Alexander carrying $200 in cash to school anyway?" Maya paused in organizing her books. "The ski trip deposit," he said. "But the ski trip deposits were due last month. I know because my parents had to write the check early for some banking reason." Jordan's voice carried the excitement of someone who'd stumbled onto something important. And even if it was late, why wouldn't he just have his parents write a check or do a bank transfer? Rich families don't deal in cash for stuff like that. The observation hit Maya like electricity. In her shock and humiliation, she hadn't questioned Alexander's explanation. But Jordan was right. Nothing about the story made sense when you actually thought about it. "We need to find out what Alexander was really planning to do with that money," Jordan continued. "And why is he so eager to blame you for its disappearance?" That same morning, Marcus was staring at his computer screen with the intensity that had made him a billionaire. The enhanced footage showed something the school's investigation had completely missed. At 2:54 p.m., while Alexander was supposedly in the bathroom, another figure had entered the study hall and moved directly toward Alexander's table. The facial recognition software had identified the person as Trevor Walsh, another senior and Alexander's closest friend. The timestamp showed Trevor had been near Alexander's backpack for nearly 3 minutes before Alexander returned. But more disturbing was what Marcus discovered when he traced the timeline further. Alexander hadn't gone to the bathroom at all. Camera footage from the hallway showed him meeting with Trevor in an empty classroom, having what appeared to be an intense conversation. They'd planned this entire scenario. Marcus picked up his phone and called his head of security, James Morrison, a former FBI agent who now handled sensitive investigations for Blackwell Technologies. "James, I need you to look into something for me, but quietly. I think my son may be involved in a setup that's destroyed an innocent girl's reputation." Meanwhile, Maya was experiencing an unexpected source of support. Ms. Rodriguez, no relation despite the shared surname, pulled her aside after AP Literature. "Maya, I've been teaching here for 12 years, she said, closing her classroom door. "I've learned to recognize integrity when I see it. What's happening to you is wrong, and I want you to know that several faculty members are questioning this investigation." "It doesn't matter what you think," Maya replied, her voice hollow with defeat. "Mrs. Hampton has already decided. The rich kid said I did it, so I did it." "Actually, it does matter, because Principal Davidson has agreed to a formal review of the case. Apparently, some very pointed questions have been raised about the thoroughness of the initial investigation." Maya felt a flicker of hope, quickly suppressed. She'd learned not to trust hope. It hurt too much when it was taken away. But across town, Marcus was making calls that would change everything. His first was to Principal Davidson himself. "Robert, this is Marcus Blackwell. I think we need to discuss the investigation into the theft from my son's backpack." Principal Davidson's voice carried the careful tone of someone trying to manage a delicate situation. "Of course, Marcus. I understand Mrs. Hampton handled everything according to protocol." "That's exactly the problem. The protocol was insufficient." Marcus's voice was calm but carried an edge that made smart people pay attention. "I've had my technical team enhance the security footage. There are significant discrepancies in the timeline that weren't discovered in the initial investigation." "Discrepancies?" "My son wasn't where he said he was when the money disappeared. And there's clear evidence of another student accessing his backpack during the relevant time frame." Marcus paused for effect. "I'm sending you the enhanced footage now. I think you'll find it illuminating." "Marcus, are you saying Alexander wasn't truthful about what happened?" "I'm saying the girl you've suspended is innocent. And I'm saying my son has some explaining to do. The formal review meeting was scheduled for Thursday morning. Maya sat in the conference room with her mother, both of them dressed in their best clothes, which looked shabby compared to the expensive suits and designer dresses of the other attendees. Alexander was there with his mother, Victoria Blackwell, a woman whose charity work made regular appearances in society magazines. Trevor Walsh sat nervously beside his own parents, his usual confidence nowhere to be found. But it was Marcus Blackwell who commanded the room's attention. He'd set up a laptop and projector, and the enhanced security footage played on the wall in crisp, undeniable detail. "As you can see," Marcus said, his voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to boardroom presentations, "at 2:47 p.m. my son leaves the study hall. But he doesn't go to the bathroom as stated. He meets with Trevor Walsh in classroom 214. The footage showed Alexander and Trevor in intense conversation. Even without audio, their body language suggested planning and coordination. At 2:54, while Alexander is still with Trevor, Trevor enters the study hall alone and goes directly to Alexander's backpack. The enhanced footage clearly showed Trevor opening the backpack and removing something. He's there for 2 minutes and 47 seconds. Mrs. Hampton shifted uncomfortably in her chair. The girl was still seen in the vicinity. Maya Rodriguez walked past the study hall entrance for approximately 3 seconds, Marcus interrupted. She never entered the room, never deviated from her path to the library, and was nowhere near my son's backpack. Trevor Walsh, on the other hand, had direct access for nearly 3 minutes. Rosa Rodriguez spoke for the first time, her voice steady, despite her nervousness. "My daughter has never stolen anything in her life. She works 2 tutoring jobs to help our family, and she's never taken so much as a pencil that didn't belong to her." Victoria Blackwell had been silent throughout the presentation, but now she turned to her son with an expression Maya had never seen on a parent's face before, profound disappointment mixed with dawning understanding. "Alexander," she said quietly, "is there something you need to tell us?" Alexander's composure finally cracked. "It wasn't supposed to happen like this. It was just supposed to be temporary." "What was supposed to be temporary?" Marcus asked, his voice dangerously quiet. Trevor's father, a prominent lawyer, seemed to realize where this was headed. "Trevor, don't say anything else without—" "No," Trevor interrupted, his face pale but determined. "I'm tired of lying about this." He looked directly at Maya. "We took the money, Alexander and I. But it wasn't because we needed it." The room fell silent except for the hum of the air conditioning. "Then why?" Principal Davidson asked. Alexander finally spoke, his voice barely above a whisper. "There's this poker game. Some guys from St. Catherine's Academy run it. High stakes. I'd been playing for months, and I owed them $3,000. Victoria Blackwell's face went white. $3,000? "Alexander, why didn't you just ask for—" "Because I knew you'd find out about the gambling, and I knew Dad would go ballistic." Alexander's voice grew stronger, as if confessing was liberating him. "Trevor was trying to help me figure out how to get the money without you finding out. We staged the theft to create an excuse for me to ask for cash without explaining what I really needed it for." Marcus's jaw tightened. "And you chose Maya because you thought no one would question her guilt." "We didn't think it would go this far," Trevor added desperately. "We thought it would just be a simple report, maybe a meeting with Mrs. Hampton. We never expected all this." "You never expected consequences for destroying someone's life," Rosa said, her voice shaking with controlled anger. "You never thought about what this would do to my daughter's future, her college applications, her scholarship." Maya had been silent throughout the confrontation, watching her life be restored piece by piece, but now she found her voice. "Do you have any idea what the last 3 days have been like?" she asked, looking directly at Alexander. "Everyone at school is treating me like a criminal. My family worried sick about losing my scholarship. My little sister is asking why kids at her school are saying her sister is a thief." Alexander couldn't meet her eyes. "I'm sorry. I'm really, really sorry." "Sorry doesn't fix the damage," Maya replied. "Sorry. Don't undo the humiliation or give me back the 3 days of my life you stole with your lie." The formal apology from the school came within hours, but Maya discovered that clearing her name was only the beginning of a much larger battle. The story had spread beyond Westfield Academy's walls, picked up by local news outlets fascinated by the story of false accusations at an elite private school. Maya's phone buzzed constantly with interview requests, but each news story seemed to focus more on the scandal than on her vindication. Social media posts from her classmates ranged from apologies to defensive comments about how anyone could have made the same mistake. But it was the conversation with her college admissions counselor that truly shattered Maya's recovery. "I'm sorry, Maya," Mrs. Peters said during their scheduled phone call. "I know you've been cleared of all charges, but several admissions committees have already seen the preliminary reports about the incident. Some are concerned about the, quote, controversy surrounding your application." Maya felt the world tilt. "But I was innocent. Everyone knows that now." "I understand, and that's what I'm telling them. But admissions committees are conservative by nature. They don't want any potential drama associated with their incoming classes. So even though I did nothing wrong, I'm still being punished? Let's not think of it as punishment. But yes, it may impact your options." Maya hung up the phone and stared at her laptop screen, where her carefully crafted college essays seemed to mock her. All her hard work, her perfect grades, her debate team victories, potentially meaningless because two privileged boys had needed a convenient scapegoat. That evening, Rosa found Maya crying at the kitchen table, surrounded by college brochures and applications. "Mija, what's wrong? I thought everything was resolved." "It's not resolved, Mama. The damage is done. Some colleges don't want to take a chance on me now, even though everyone knows I'm innocent." Rosa sat down heavily, suddenly looking every one of her 36 years. "So even when you do everything right, it's still not enough?" "Apparently not." Meanwhile, Marcus was having his own difficult conversations. Alexander had been suspended from Westfield Academy, pending a disciplinary hearing, and Marcus had spent the evening learning details about his son's gambling problem that horrified him. "How did I not see this?" he asked Victoria as they sat in their living room, trying to process the wreckage of their assumptions about their son. "We were both so busy," Victoria replied, her voice hollow. "I thought he was just being a typical teenager." "A typical teenager doesn't accumulate $3,000 in gambling debt. A typical teenager doesn't destroy an innocent girl's reputation to cover his mistakes." Victoria was quiet for a long moment. "What are we going to do?" Marcus had been thinking about that very question all evening. "We're going to fix this. All of it. Starting with making sure Maya Rodriguez doesn't suffer any permanent damage from our son's actions." The next morning, Maya was surprised to find Marcus Blackwell waiting in the main office when she arrived at school. He was dressed in a simple business suit rather than his usual expensive attire, and his expression was serious but kind. "Miss Rodriguez, could I have a moment of your time?" Maya glanced around nervously. "I guess so." Marcus gestured toward an empty conference room. "I wanted to speak with you about the impact this situation has had on your college prospects." Maya's stomach dropped. "How did you—" "I have connections in the admissions world. I made some calls yesterday." Marcus's voice was gentle but direct. "I know some schools are reconsidering your applications because of the initial reports." "There's nothing anyone can do about that," Maya said, resignation heavy in her voice. "Actually, there is." Marcus pulled out a folder. "I've spoken with admissions directors at 15 universities, including 3 Ivy League schools. I've personally vouched for your character and explained the circumstances of the false accusation. More importantly, I've established a scholarship fund specifically for students who've overcome significant challenges with integrity and grace." Maya stared at him. "I don't understand. You're the first recipient of the Blackwell Foundation Merit Scholarship. Full tuition, room and board, plus a stipend for books and expenses. Any university you choose to attend. Why would you do this for me?" Marcus was quiet for a moment, choosing his words carefully. "Because my son's actions revealed something ugly about our world. How quickly people assume guilt based on economic status. Because you handled false accusations with more dignity than most adults could manage. And because talent and character shouldn't be punished for the mistakes of others. I don't know what to say. Say you'll use the opportunity to change the world. Say you'll remember that having power means using it to protect people who don't have it." That afternoon, Maya sat in the library where Mrs. Chen found her, staring at acceptance letters from universities she'd only dreamed of attending. "Good news?" Mrs. Chen asked. Overwhelming news, Maya replied. I have choices now that I never thought possible. And you deserve every one of them. But Maya's transformation wasn't just about college prospects. The experience had changed something fundamental in how she saw herself and her place in the world. She'd learned that truth didn't always emerge automatically. Sometimes it required someone with resources and determination to dig deeper. That evening, she called Jordan Chen. I want to do something, she told him. I want to make sure this doesn't happen to other students who don't have a billionaire willing to investigate them. What did you have in mind? A student advocacy program, something that ensures accusations are investigated thoroughly before students' lives are destroyed. Maybe a legal aid clinic for students who can't afford representation. Jordan's excitement was audible through the phone. That's brilliant. And you'd have credibility, because you lived through it. Meanwhile, Alexander was discovering that consequences for privileged teenagers could be more complex than simple punishment. His parents had enrolled him in counseling for his gambling addiction, but they'd also made him face the full impact of his actions. You're going to personally apologize to Maya Rodriguez, Victoria told him over dinner. Not a formal letter, not through intermediaries, face to face. I already said I was sorry. You mumbled an apology while being confronted with evidence, Marcus corrected. That's not the same thing as taking responsibility. Alexander found Maya at her locker the next morning, flanked by Jordan and several other students who'd become her vocal supporters as the truth emerged. Maya, could I talk to you? Alone? Jordan looked ready to refuse, but Maya nodded. It's okay. They walked to an empty classroom, the same one where the security footage had shown Alexander and Trevor planning their deception. I know saying sorry isn't enough, Alexander began, his voice shaking slightly. But I need you to know that I understand what I did to you. Not just the false accusation, but the assumption that people would believe you were guilty because of your background. Maya studied his face, looking for signs of insincerity. Do you really understand it? I'm starting to. My mom made me read all the news articles about the case. The comments people made about you before the truth came out. The assumptions about poor students being more likely to steal. Alexander's voice cracked. I used those assumptions. I counted on them. Yes, you did. I'm transferring to a different school. My parents think it's better for everyone, and they're right. But before I left, I wanted you to know that watching you handle all this with dignity taught me something about the kind of person I want to become. Maya was quiet for a long moment. I hope you figure it out, Alexander, and I hope you use what you learned to help other people instead of hurting them. 6 months later, Maya stood at the podium in Harvard University's freshman orientation hall, addressing an audience of incoming students from around the world. Her story had become something of a legend, the scholarship student who'd been falsely accused of theft and whose vindication had led to broader conversations about bias and justice in educational institutions. When I was accused of stealing $200 from a classmate, Maya began, her voice clear and confident, I learned that truth isn't automatically more powerful than assumption. Truth requires advocates. It requires people willing to look beyond the obvious answer and dig deeper. In the audience, Rosa Rodriguez wiped away tears of pride. Her daughter had not only survived an attempt to destroy her future, she'd transformed it into a platform for helping others. The Blackwell Foundation Merit Scholarship didn't just pay for my education, Maya continued. It taught me that having privilege means using it responsibly. Those of you from wealthy families have an obligation to question systems that unfairly benefit you. Those of us from struggling backgrounds have an obligation to lift others up as we climb. After the speech, Maya was approached by dozens of students wanting to know more about the advocacy program she'd established. The Maya Rodriguez Student Justice Initiative had already helped 3 students at other schools fight false accusations, and it was expanding to include broader issues of educational equity. Later that evening, Maya video called her family from her dorm room. Carmen, now 9 years old, had proudly told her entire class that her sister went to Harvard. I miss you, mija, Rosa said, but I'm so proud of what you're doing. It all feels surreal sometimes, Maya admitted. A year ago, I thought my life was over because of a lie. Now I'm at Harvard with opportunities I never imagined. You earned those opportunities, Rosa reminded her. Not because of what happened to you, but because of how you responded to it. As Maya hung up the phone and looked out her window at Harvard Yard, she thought about the path that had brought her here. The false accusation had been devastating, But it had also revealed something crucial about her own character and about the world she wanted to help create. Her phone buzzed with a text from Jordan, who was studying engineering at MIT. "Saw your speech online, you're changing the world already." Maya smiled, remembering the scared, humiliated girl she'd been just months ago. That girl was still part of her, but she'd grown into something stronger, someone who understood that injustice revealed character, both in those who perpetrated it and in those who survived it. The next morning, Maya had her first meeting with the Harvard Legal Aid Society, where she would spend the next 4 years developing programs to help students who couldn't afford representation when facing academic or disciplinary challenges. As she walked across campus, Maya passed a group of wealthy students complaining about having to pay for their own coffee instead of having it brought to them. She smiled, remembering Alexander's transformation and the possibility for growth in even the most privileged circumstances. But more importantly, she thought about Trevor Walsh, who had surprised everyone by becoming one of the most vocal advocates for reform at Westfield Academy. His guilt over the false accusation had motivated him to examine his own assumptions about privilege and justice. Maya's story had become larger than the theft accusation that started it. It had become a testament to the power of truth, the importance of thorough investigation, and the responsibility that comes with privilege. Most importantly, it has become proof that sometimes the worst things that happen to us can become the foundation for the most meaningful work we'll ever do. As she entered the legal aid office for her first day as a volunteer, Maya carried with her the lesson that had defined her transformation, that dignity in the face of injustice wasn't just about survival, it was about using that survival to ensure others wouldn't have to endure what she had. The poor girl who had been accused of stealing had become a force for justice that would impact countless lives. And in a world where assumptions too often passed for truth, that was perhaps the most valuable theft of all, stealing back the narrative and using it to create something better. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hits the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.